It had managed to pull itself onto its knees before Simon finally broke free from his paralysis. Spinning around, he sprinted back toward his car, silently thanking himself for leaving the driver's door open. He threw himself inside, slammed the accelerator to the floor, and the car surged forward just as the creature lurched toward him. Its skeletal fingers clawed through the air, missing the door handle by mere inches, before the speeding car sent it tumbling backward into the rows of gravestones. The GPS crackled through the silence. Go 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 19 miles, then continue straight on unnamed road. Impossible, impossible. The words echoed through Simon's mind as panic overwhelmed every rational thought. He sped deeper into the darkness, racing past endless rows of headstones, crumbling mausoleums, and ancient crypts. Instinctively he reached for his phone, desperate to call the police, his sister, anyone at all. His hand found only an empty pocket. The phone still lay somewhere back on the road where he dropped it, even if it hadn't already been crushed beneath his tires. There was no chance he was going back for it. Besides, turning around no longer seemed possible. The road had somehow narrowed again until it was barely wider than a single lane, with gravestones crowding both sides only feet from his car. Perhaps, with enough careful maneuvering, he could still make a three-point turn, but he had already crossed two more long trails of blood, and shapes were beginning to move just beyond the reach of his headlights. Every glimpse came and went so quickly that he couldn't tell whether they were real or tricks of the darkness. Terror tightened around his chest. He pressed harder on the accelerator, hoping speed alone could carry him beyond whatever nightmare this had become. But the farther he drove, the tighter the road seemed to close around him. By the time the pale moon climbed above the horizon, the road had become little more than a lonely strip of pavement, cutting through an endless sea of graves. Moonlight washed over the landscape, and Simon felt every ounce of blood drain from his face. The cemetery stretched in every direction as far as he could see, reaching all the way to the horizon. Countless marble and granite headstones crowded the barren earth like silent spectators. Massive tombs and ancient crypts rose among them, hulking shapes that resembled slumbering giants crouched in the darkness. Stone pillars, towering obelisks, and weathered statues stood like forgotten prophets addressing an audience of the dead. And hidden between their shadows, avoiding even the moonlight itself, figures that were almost, but not quite, human moved with disturbingly smooth, unnatural grace. From the silence left behind by the radio, a church bell suddenly rang out. Its deep, mournful toll drifted through the crackling static, filling the car with an overwhelming sense of dread. Simon quickly reached for the dashboard and switched the radio off, but the sound refused to fade. Somewhere beyond the moonlit darkness, the bell of that monstrous church continued to ring, each slow chime echoing across the endless cemetery. As if answering the summons, the creatures emerged from the shadows. They poured across the graves in countless numbers, servants of something far older and far more terrible than Simon could comprehend. Their bodies were little more than skeletons wrapped in rotting burial cloths, held together by grave worms and strips of decayed fabric, yet they moved with horrifying grace. They flowed over the uneven ground like water rushing downhill, impossibly smooth and far faster than their broken forms should have allowed. As they ran, their bones scraped softly against one another, creating an eerie rhythm that almost sounded like music. But it was no ordinary melody. It was a song of death, not merely the death of a single person, but the extinction of humanity itself. It sang of lifeless worlds, of silent planets drifting through a frozen universe, where every star had gone dark. It spoke of an existence consumed entirely by the cemetery's endless shadow. Beneath that dreadful chorus lurked something even worse, joy, a twisted satisfaction that insisted life had always been the mistake, and that death alone was the natural order of all creation. The church bell continued its relentless toll, each heavy strike merging with the rattling song of the skeletons until both sounds became one terrifying symphony. More and more corpses flooded over the hills, gathering into an unstoppable tide behind Simon's car. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white, forcing himself to stare only at the road ahead while desperately pretending that hell itself wasn't rising on either side of him. Without warning, the road began to climb. Soon Simon realized he was driving along the narrow crest of a raised embankment separating two vast sections of the cemetery. The strip of pavement was scarcely wider than his car. One careless movement would send him plunging down either side into the sea of graves below. The road twisted across the ridge in long, lazy curves that seemed almost designed to tempt him into taking them too quickly. Simon eased off the accelerator before every bend, only to press it down again the moment the road straightened, desperately trying to put more distance between himself and the horde pursuing him. Then another sound rose from behind. A deep, unified howl rolled across the cemetery as thousands of creatures cried out together. If the whispering bones had sung of death, this voice sang of blood, warm, thick rivers of it drowning the earth beneath crimson tides. The sound chilled Simon to his core. A violent shiver ran through his body, and almost without thinking, he pushed the accelerator down once more, throwing the car into the next series of curves at an even greater speed. Then, through the crackling speaker, the GPS spoke again. In one half-mile Duunt, look back. Instinctively, Simon's eyes darted toward where the rearview mirror should have been, only to find the broken mount still attached to the windshield. He quickly checked the side mirrors instead, but they revealed nothing except moonlight reflecting off countless gravestones and the glimmering bones of the army pursuing him. Then a deep rumble began to build beneath the road. It was so low it was almost impossible to hear, yet the entire car trembled as though the earth itself had started to quake. Panic overwhelmed him, against every instinct telling him not to. Simon twisted around and looked behind, taking his eyes completely off the road. The GPS crackled frantically through the speakers. Don't. But it was already too late. Simon couldn't tear his eyes away from what he saw. The ground behind him was rising. Massive sections of the cemetery bulged upward, entire hills lifting into the air as though some unimaginable force beneath the earth was pushing its way to the surface. Then the horrifying truth revealed itself. It wasn't something beneath the graveyard that was moving. The graveyard itself was coming alive. Countless graves, tombstones, crypts, and chunks of earth fused together into a colossal creature that towered over the landscape. With every enormous step, more of the cemetery was absorbed into its body, causing it to grow even larger. The swarms of skeletal creatures scattered effortlessly around its feet, flowing between its strides like insects fleeing a giant's footsteps. Its body never held a single shape for long. Limbs stretched, dissolved, and reformed with every movement, constantly shifting into new monstrous forms. Only two things remained unchanged. Its eyes. They burned with the same fiery glow as the stained glass windows of the church, and they never stopped watching Simon. Suddenly the GPS screamed louder than ever before. Turn right to remain on unnamed road. The sharp warning snapped Simon back to reality just as he felt the front left tire slip off the pavement and spin uselessly across the grass.